Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we do have a brand new Goldshell ASIC for Alephium. We do have news on the AL Max. We do have full specs, we have pricing, we have availability, profitability, all that good stuff. We'll compare it to the competition to see how it stacks up and if this thing is going to be worth looking at. Okay. We'll also do a little mini deep dive into Alephium ASIC mining as a whole, just to look at the competitors, see what it's looking like, because it is getting more appealing just because of Alephium's recent price action and where the prices of the other ASICs are currently. Okay, so if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So let's get right to it. So the AL Max was announced back on the 28th, 8.3 terahash, 3,350 watts. This is a big boy unit coming from Goldshell. And yet again, they're kind of separating themselves in a way from these bigger units, calling it a exclusive custom model. Okay, which is something similar they did with the DG Max. They didn't really list it on their site, although the DG Max specifically, they labeled that as a custom model for a client, which we found extremely weird because it was available on all the reseller sites. Kind of the same thing here. So I don't know what they mean exactly by custom. I don't know if that's their way of saying that it's like limited, smaller batch. Maybe that's kind of what it's in reference to. But again, it is available from your favorite resellers. Okay. So let's compare this guy. Let's look at profitability. 8.3 terahash, 3350 watts at a 10-cent kilowatt hour. It's going to make about 15 bucks a day. And a lot of this is because Alephium has been doing quite well recently, which probably is why this thing is releasing now. Let's compare it to the competition though, and this is where things kind of change. So again, 8.3 at 3350, the AL3, which is very close to the AL1. So in reality, compared to the iceriver and the Bitmain unit, 15 terahash, so nearly double for not a lot more wattage. Okay, so nearly, not exactly, but nearly twice as efficient. Okay, which is a pretty significant difference, right? So in this case, your income is now $41.55, your profitability is $33.15 versus the $14 here. Okay, so pretty significant difference there. And the reason this is not so great right now is pricing wise, right? In reality, this thing is overpriced and currently does have it listed at 2,900 bucks, which does not make sense because again, this guy has nearly twice the hash rate, twice the efficiency for not a whole lot more money. It's only $3,800. So this guy definitely overpriced at this current time, at least. If you're going to invest this much cash, if you're going to invest in a Alephium ASIC, definitely the AL3 currently would be the way to go here. Okay. So for that reasons, as it stands right now, the AL Max essentially a dud at this price point. If they were to lower the price, maybe. For me specifically, not something I would find appealing at all. At least currently. Things will change drastically as Alephium hopefully does appreciate once it goes into the $4, $5, $6+ range. That's where things may look different because this guy is likely also going to increase in price. And this guy may stay in this lower range and may become more appealing because it's more affordable, right? If this guy does go back up to 5, 6, 7, 8+ thousand, and this guy is like 4 or 5,000 because it's now making 25, 30 bucks a day, that's when some people may find it appealing. For me personally, I still wouldn't. Again, I don't focus on the fiat profitability. I'm all about the yield. And when I'm looking at ASICs, I want efficiency. I want the most efficient units, right? It would have to be a drastic decrease in price for me to really consider, right? So if this guy was maybe 1,500 bucks, sure, but no, right? So realistically, if you're interested in Alephium ASIC mining, currently the AL3 would be the way to go. Some things to factor in here though, and this is something we mentioned in the recent pricing update video we did, is that I'm still fully expecting for Bitmain to potentially do something here, just because their equivalent unit still hasn't reduced in price. So they still have not answered to iceriver's price reduction being at $3,800. It's still listed in the $10,000 to $11,000 range for the AL1. We do fully expect for them to follow that Caspa model, for them to potentially either price match or go slightly lower. The difference now, though, is that the climate is very, very different. Okay, so we may not get them to undercut iceriver. It's potential that they do reduce. Obviously, it makes sense for them to reduce because this makes zero sense. If you're in the market for one, you're not going to be looking at the AL1, you're going to be looking at the AL3. it's potential that they reduce, but maybe not as aggressively. I wouldn't be surprised to see them come in at like 4,500, 5,000, and this kind of still values in the same point, right? But again, we don't know, right? They've been so unpredictable with these aggressive price reductions. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that, or I wouldn't be surprised to see them undercut iceriver, just go down like 2,500, kind of like what happened with the KS5s, and just kind of end it there. Okay, because then at that point, then what's going to happen? The Bitmain unit is arguably the superior unit, so realistically the AL3 should probably drop further, because if people on the market for both, they're going to go for the Bitmain unit. Okay, so that's kind of the risk factor currently. The problem with that, though, is let's say, okay, you know, I think Bitmain will reduce. Oh, what if they don't? And what if tomorrow Alephium goes up to $4 or $5? What if it does a 2x like some of these alts have been doing in the past 24 hours? Very possible with such a small market cap. You're not going to get that price reduction. And as a matter of fact, this batch will likely sell out, and the next batch will be 5,000, 6,000. Okay, that scenario is also possible, right? We've seen it firsthand for you guys who aren't believing these theories with the script ASICs. We saw pretty much how fast those things went up 20%, 60%, 100% within the matter of days. Okay, so we don't know what Alephium's price is going to do. Maybe it stays stagnant. Maybe it continues this range. Right now, currently, they're stepping very nicely, just continuing to nice, steady growth. Okay, so those are definitely the risk factors here. It is very risky waiting for that price reduction that may never happen, and then you might get priced out of this guy. Okay, but understand that it's possible for it to go down to 2,500 bucks fairly soon if Bitmain does something, or to go up to 5, 6K if Alephium's price action does something. Right? This is this hard part. You have to decide risk to reward. What is it looking like? Okay, you have to kind of be able to live with the fact if it does go down aggressively, there's potential to happen here. Right? It's just really hard to say where the odds are. Okay, but in general, if you're interested in any Alephium ASICs, whether it's this guy, the AL2 Lite is somewhat more appealing because you are getting a smaller slice of the pie. Similar efficiency, just on a smaller scale, but unfortunately you are going to pay a premium for this guy. Okay, for example, if we were to get 8 of these, because it's currently a 2 terahash unit, for it to be the equivalent of the bigger unit, you would need about 8 of them. That would bring you to a total of about 5,200 bucks at the 649 price. Okay, so 5,200 versus the 3,700, you're paying quite a premium for that, right? But again, it's risk factors. Okay, because let's say there is a 30% price reduction going from 650 to, let's say, 450. Obviously, it sucks, but it's not going to kill you, right? So this is where you have to see if it's worthwhile. Like, yes, you're paying that premium, but you're also not taking as much risk, arguably because of the amount of capital you're putting up front. Okay, so not a bad option here either, right? So these are just things to consider, and it kind of just depends on your goals here. Okay. The other huge risk factor, though, regardless of what unit you were to get, whether it's this one, the Bitmain, any unit, is factoring Alephium's hash rate, and this is something that can be a game changer, something you have to factor in for sure if you're considering getting one. Okay, so again, what we always recommend is don't look at the fiat profitability, because again, if Alephium goes to $1, this is going to change drastically. If Alephium goes to $6, this is going to change drastically. You know what's not going to change drastically? The yield. Until people either buy the unit or do something else, but this is what you need to focus on because of that. So currently, Alephium's hash rate, it's peaking around, again, we're going to do ballpark numbers just for easy math purposes. Okay, so 28.7 petahash, we can run it up to 30 petahash. So in terms of equivalent AL3 units, again, each one being 15 terahash. If we were to do 2,000 units, right, so we'll just multiply the amount of hash rate for the unit to the amount of units we think may come out in that batch. Let's put an approximate 2,000 units. That brings us to 30,000 terahash, which when we convert to petahash, which all we're doing is removing 3 zeros, dividing by 1,000, brings us to what? The 30 petahash. 30 petahash is, again, ballparking where we're at currently. So to sum up, if 2,000 equivalent AL3s in hash comes out, whether it's AL3s, AL1s, Goldshell, any ASIC in that capacity, if that amount of hash rate comes on, that's all it's going to take to double the hash rate, which is going to what? Going to have your yield. Okay, so I think 2,000 is a pretty realistic number, especially if Alephium does continue to stair step. Arguably, it could go potentially more than that. So if we look at profitability, so again, you're going to go from the 22 alpha day down to 11 alpha day. Okay, so again, essentially, easiest way to think about that, also just reduce your income in half. So going from 42 bucks to 21 bucks a day, subtract your 840, 1340 a day profitability versus the current 33. Okay, that's very likely. I would peg it at that at least. It's potential it goes up further, right? Especially if Alephium does continue to pump, then yes, the hype here will continue to grow. If it retraces, goes down to 170, kind of goes sideways for a while, works a little bit better in your favor because, again, it's less popular, less people wanting to go crazy, and FOMO for these ASICs. Okay, so this is where it's going to sound kind of weird, but in reality, if you're interested in an Alephium ASIC, you're kind of better off with crappier sideways action to be able to accumulate longer. Okay, if this thing runs up like what happened with Doge, where now everybody and their mom wants it, it gets tougher to get. The price of the ASIC goes up, your yield goes down, and it gets very drastic with these more immature networks. Script, the reason it's appealing is because it's a very mature network, a lot of hash rate. It can absorb a lot of that hash rate without such a significant impact. Again, with Alephium, only 2,000 units is going to have your yield. Okay, so you always want to kind of think about it worst case scenario. Things can get crazy. We know that both iceriver and Bitmain have the capacity to make a metric shit ton of these units if things do pop off, right? We did see that with Caspa where the hash rate went up immensely. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised, like especially if Alephium continues, does what we think it's going to do, goes to $5-6, for it to go to 60, 80, 100, and then just continue on from there, just like what we saw with Caspa. Okay, so it just kind of depends on the extent of the price action. And the hope here would be that the price action could potentially keep up with the hash rate after a certain point. Will it keep up exactly? No, but it'll hopefully help. Because again, Alephium does also have a lot of room to run. It's ranked number 411, $175 million market cap. Arguably can go up. Okay, so it's kind of going to depend on how bullish you are here. For me, I'm very bullish. It is one of my bigger holdings. It's one that I'm currently mining with those AL0s. I'll be continuing to stack. I am definitely still interested in getting a Alephium ASIC potentially. Kind of the holdback for me is that I'm very close to my overall goal already as it is. I did end up buying a good amount. Pretty much finishing the majority of my bag back here in this $10, $12 range. Okay. So this is one of those things is that obviously if we go back in time, this was a much better time to buy. You go farther back, obviously the best time was back here, which unfortunately did not get enough, did not mine enough back here. Those were the times to get it, right? So a lot of this is going to be perspective, because if you were mining it back here, you got a whole shit ton of, if you're GPU mining it for quite a while. And for you, it's not going to be appealing looking at the rewards, right? So kind of one of those things you got to factor in as far as buying goes. It's arguably kind of risky here just because it's gone up such a good amount. It's a good 70-80% from where it was just a week ago, or a few weeks ago, I should say. This is where it gets risky because what if you do buy up here? Like, okay, you know what? I'd rather take that 3,700 and buy Alephium currently. Potential that it retraces back to that amount, right? So this is where it gets tough. And this is where we're saying that the longer you wait, like already at this point, you should have the bulk of your stuff kind of already there, right? If you bought in anytime earlier, anytime during these dips, those were arguably the times to buy. It just gets riskier as it goes up. Okay, but then there's also potential, like we've mentioned. For me, for example, my bull market target price for Alephium, again, I'm very conservative to go with my numbers, but it's anywhere from 10 to 15 bucks. Realistically, like around that $12 range. Okay, so me, if I'm DCAing into projects, I ideally try to look for that 10x range potential. Okay, so like buying even a $1.20 still felt okay because good 10x potential from there. Will it happen? Won't it happen? We don't know, right? It could way overperform or it could way underperform. Okay, we don't really know, but it's one that personally I'm bullish on. I'm banking on it. There's a lot of factors for me that I think it will do at least fairly well, and it has the potential to go beyond well, right? So A lot of it, again, is going to be just where you see it, where you got in at, where you started at. I know a lot of you guys, just like myself, mined back in the GPU days. So to you, it's already gone up a lot, right? So like if we were getting in last year, again, when it was sub 20 cents, it's well over 10x since then. So the fact that it could 10x from here, looking at potentially 100x gains from down at the bottom. Okay, so that's why some of us who've been in the game longer, we're gonna be more conservative, and if it goes to $10, it's gonna be freaking insane already, right? And something that realistically can go well beyond that. Okay, this is the crazy part why we're saying that it's harder now at this point with these elevated prices versus back here these past 2 years when we had all that time to be accruing, right? So that's why the majority was accrued back here. We're finishing off our bags on any opportunities we have here just with the anticipation that it may go up further. Okay, so even on the buying aspect, it's still not bad. It's still appealing. Obviously, it's hard to buy when things are running up like this. At least for me, I'm definitely a big numbers person and like to see my average buys. And for me, it's hard to buy on a green candle. And this is where I am going to kind of struggle to a certain extent just because I see this chart and I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to buy. But in reality, you do have to kind of think longer term, where do you think it's going to go? In reality, this may not be the worst buy. Like I wouldn't heavily buy on here. Maybe DCA a bit. But again, it's definitely just going to be up to you, up to the strategy. Do you think it's worthwhile? Do you think it's not? Like for me personally, I'm very bullish on Alephium. So that's why I still would consider getting an ASIC. But I'm not necessarily like super about it just because my bag is pretty much where I want it to be at, right? Obviously, you can never have enough of anything, but just for my goal numbers, I'm kind of where I want to be. So if we do get a deal here, though, like for example, if we do get that $2,500 range, it's going to be an insta buy for me. At this range, it's definitely still appealing. I'm definitely just waiting to see if Bitmain does anything here to further decide. I still actually very contemplating getting on AL2 Lite, just because again I'm like 92-94% of getting to my overall goal that I wanted. Ideally I would like to mine the rest. I don't know if I'm going to make it with the AL0s. Getting one, maybe two AL lights will for sure get me there, but realistically if I'm going to buy more than one, I would ideally just like to buy one of these guys, right? Because to me the risk to reward is still decent, even if, or not if, but when the hash rate doubles, triples, 4x's, 5x's, 6x's, in the hopes that the price action will also 4, 5, 6, 8, potentially 10x from here, right? So it's a lot of things to consider, guys. Again, it just gets very much harder, much riskier the later you wait in this game, right? So that's why for me, I'd still be on the fence. I'm like whatever about it just because I currently am pretty much maxed out with my ASICs. If this is where things also change though, and this is why I'm still looking at ASICs. If I'm able to resell any of my current ASICs at a price that is more than what I paid for it, I would gladly sell it, potentially try to purchase one of these if I can get around the same amount. Okay, so gonna kind of risk it for the biscuit in that sense and hope that any of the existing ASICs I do have, if their value goes up significantly, I will likely be selling and looking for something else just to continue to roll over those profits. Okay, so a lot of strategy, guys. You kind of have to come up with what makes more sense to you, whether it's either purchasing an ASIC this late in the game, purchasing a little smaller at-home thing, which to me, in a sense, has a higher likelihood of making that return on investment, or just buying the coin outright. Again, there's no wrong way to do it. We're not going to find out really which was the best way until it's already too late, right? And in a sense, it kind of is borderline too late, right? So there is still money to be made. It's just going to be more difficult, a lot more thought process here. But at the end of the day, it's a choice you got to make, right? So overall, it's still interesting. Hasn't ran up like Doge, right? Ideally, we want to look for those next in line to pump. Whether it's Alephium ASICs, whether it's ETC ETH hash ASICs, which is another one that is prime considering all of the assets are going up. That's what you kind of want to look for, right? So that's why for me, a $17,000 L9 is not appealing at all. Ideally, I'd rather look for the next one if I get another one, right? At this point, I'm not too picky because I'm kind of already where I want to be. So for me to get something else, it has to be extreme value where I feel it's like extremely warranted, which in reality, the AL3 kind of is there. But again, just my main worry here is what the hell is Bitmain going to do? I'm going to be pissed if I pay $3,800 for this thing And then come tomorrow, Cyber Monday, Bitmain comes out $2,500 for the AL1, and it's available spot. That'd be furious. So this is where you have to consider, right? So that can happen. Alephium goes to $6, and this guy's now $7 grand. That can also happen. Let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? Where do you see it happening? Do you guys see Bitmain actually retaliating, doing something, or just kind of chilling? Let me know in the comments what do you guys think. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I am out.